Roll call. I am here. Ms. Allen is absent. Mr. Gibler is absent. Mr. Palin? Here. Mr. Horstman?
Here.
Mr. Stogstad?
Here.
Approval of minutes from the previous meeting. Anybody see any changes or corrections? Fantastic. No visitors. We'll roll right into claims. And I have county clerk right here. And I believe there's only a couple that are over the 2,500. So here's the first one.
And Chris, I did try to flag those with Post-it notes, so you can find them quickly in the stack.
Perfect. This is just a 90 you can just read the whole number because it's below the 2,500.
Right. $97.34 for Iron Mountain.
Yep. And then here's under 001 for the county clerk general fund. We'll look at it.
Okay, we're just reading the ones over.
Yep, just the ones over. So if you want to read and or vice versa, hand them to Jack.
Okay, for the GBS, $21,661.56. Okay. Another GBS, 4,310.
Right. Total $30,619.07.
Nancy, you want to give a report?
Good morning, everyone.
Or
The first thing I'd like to cover is effective a week ago today, our new fee schedule went into effect. We've had quite a bit of mail that went back because of the increase, but it's going pretty well. Second thing, I got through my first budget, so that was very, very exciting. I think all went well, but I'll wait to see what that looks like when it comes back to me. And then the third thing I have this morning is our election equipment did go out for bid. So it will be in the newspaper starting tomorrow, and we will have something on the website here sometime today. So we'll see how that goes. And that's all I have. Questions?
Any questions? Thank you. Moving on to the treasurer's report. I have 003. All of them are below 2,500, but there it is. So 003 is the county general. Yeah, just read off the bottom number for me if you want. Yep, and then sign it.
Total $2,714.43.
I have another one here for 012, below 2,500.
Total $935.13.
I then have two here for tourism. You're going to be very happy, sir.
Thank you.
But they are above 2,500, so
Oh, man.
they're very good.
So we've got Lee County Tourism Council, $10,794.74. For City of Dixon, also $10,070 $794.74. Total $21,589.48.
Perfect. And just make sure you sign the 2 pages there, Jack. Yep, somebody can. And here is a bunch of levies. 016 for social service senior funds that will all have to be read off.
Summary sheet on them all.
Okay.
So the first one is Village of Paw Paw, amount $1,000. Next one, Serenity Hospice, amount $4,000. Next, Dixon Public Library, amount $400. Next, City of Amboy, amount $4,000. Next, Meals on Wheels, amount $4,000. Next, Catholic Charities, amount $2,500. Next, Rock River Hospice, amount $5,000. Next, Lifescape, amount $11,000. Next, Lee County Council on Aging, amount $69,500.
A grand total of $101,400.
And the last one for the treasurer is also a big one. It's also a levy under 019 line number.
And that's total $100,000.
To, looks like co-op or
Co-op
something.
extension.
Oh, it's not here.
I was just going to add something to that. You noticed that some of those might have been under the $2,500 threshold that we talked about. But those are examples, and I thought it was important to just remind you on an annual basis, because that's an annual process there. Those are the social service agencies that the county provides funding to for various reasons. And I just thought it was be helpful or useful for you to look at every one of those instead of excluding a couple of them and looking at the rest.
Thank you. I did not know that, but it was interesting that you do that, so.
Moving on to ROE, all of them are below 2,500. What's your total? Right there.
So that's it.
I think it goes on the back,
Let's
next
go to the
page.
back. Oh,
Total is $2,953.91.
So FYI, those were all under 2,500 as noted by Chris. There was one in there that I just asked Chris about, the other Chris in the room about, and maybe when he gives his report, he can just elaborate on the Bloom Township claim, mostly from an educational perspective. That's what it was for me. So when Chris gives his report, he can share some more about that.
and we'll take a report from Chris.
Thank you. The Bloom Township is, a lot of the regional offices of education are a member of Bloom Township, simply for the fact that we have a lot of grants, state and federal grants that go through our office, and we have to hire people and have services available. And sometimes we need to pay those people before the grants are paid to us. So they are basically a financial service for us. They always have money on hand, and we process our costs through them, and they make the payments because they always have the accounts and the money on hand. And then when our grant money comes in, it goes to them. So just to clear that up, we've been using them for years, but if anyone has any more questions on why we use Bloom Township, that's the reason. And many regional offices use them. Okay, since my report came out, I think we all are aware that the governor made a big announcement that we will all be wearing masks in school this fall, right, wrong, or otherwise. That's the mandate. And since he made the mandate, that does give ISB some power with our school districts. They do have the ability now to make sure that districts are adhering to that mandate, and they do have the ability to possibly mess with the district's funding or their recognition status if a district school board were to say, no, we're going to make mass optional. So it's pretty much made it kind of cut and dried for all 24 of our school districts. I know that there's some unhappy people in the 3 counties about it, but that's just where we're at this point. And we're going to continue to obey what the governor's put out and make sure that our teachers and students are safe and continue to monitor the situation. So I'm happy to take any questions though about the mask mandate and what that means. Okay. In the report, we did a short blurb on teacher shortage. We do a big survey every year of all the superintendents across the state. And just some highlights in there. Last year, there was 938 teaching positions that went unfilled or were filled with unqualified teachers. 257 classes had to be canceled due to a lack of qualified teachers, and 93% of the districts surveyed reported a major problem finding substitute teachers, which led to teachers covering classes during their prep times, which added to the stress of the year. And obviously, COVID was tough with our subs because many of our subs are retired teachers and in that high-risk group. So last year was it was a struggle to get subs into the building. So there's a lot of things that we're working on in Illinois to help with filling these positions. 2 of the big things are now in Illinois, if we will take certifications from other states. For a long time, Illinois just thought that we were a little bit better than other states. So if you were from Wisconsin or Iowa, there was a number of classes you had to take to get certified in Illinois. It's no longer the case. So that's been a big help. And then a lot of our colleges have started programs where we have a lot of people in Illinois that maybe have a bachelor's degree and have decided they'd like to change careers and become a teacher. And more colleges are implementing these programs now where they can enroll and get fast track to get their teaching certification based on what they're interested in and the classes that they have. So we're continuing to see that help and hopefully going to continue to see that help.
Hey, Chris?
Yes.
The reciprocity, like for the other states, is it going to be allowed? Is it just Iowa, Wisconsin, or could it be Florida, California?
No, any
Mexico.
one of the United States, if you come here with an Alaska license, as long as it's a valid license, then you will get the equivalent of that in Illinois. What we do have to check on sometimes, Chris, is some of these states have not full certificates. Like they're in the process of getting a full certificate, but they get to teach with stipulations. Some of those aren't valid. But as long as it's a valid teaching certification in any of those states and they come to us with that certification, we then go ahead and they get the application filled out and ISB gives them their certification. So that's helped a lot. I get asked a lot about summer for our office. It is our busiest time. You can see that we had over 304 people come through professional development with our office this month. And Josh, my new assistant, and I are pretty busy. And another gentleman you may know, Bob Sondergroth, is coming back to work for us part-time because we're swamped right now with building permits and occupancy permits. So a lot of school districts do a lot of work in the summer, and anything that's over $50,000, they have to file a building permit with our office. We issue the permit, they get the work done, and then we have to go out and visually inspect the site before the students and teachers come back. So been really busy the last 2 weeks out and about in the districts, and we'll be busy this week getting all those done so that they're ready for students and staff to come back. Our regional safe schools getting set to open in Rock Falls. We're excited about that. As I mentioned before, we had a waiting list for all of spring because we had so many students referred to us for stress and anxiety once they came back from remote. So through some grant money and some other things that we did, we've been able to hire another teacher and open an additional classroom. So we're excited about that. So not only will we be fully staffed, we'll have an additional classroom and hopefully avoid the waiting list issue and be able to service any of the students that need our support. Quick blurb in there on our Nexus program. This is probably the most excited, the thing I'm excited about the most heading into this school year. This program is something that we're going to try. It's kind of an idea that I came up with and talked to our other administrators about. And Diana Meridian in there, she's been working with our elementary schools in Rock Falls, basically preschool age, for a few years as a result of a grant. And she kind of goes out and families that are struggling with their young kids, getting them ready for school, or they're struggling in preschool. She's kind of a support. It's not punitive. It's not punitive at all. She goes out and finds out what the issues are and then tries to adjust those issues. And it could be anything from families needing extra support, needing to make appointments with Mississippi or LSSI, medical issues, those types of things, and works with them And I thought, coming out of this pandemic, why don't we do that for all our schools? So we put together a proposal because we don't have any funding for it. And I presented to all the superintendents in June and said, if we get enough money, the schools are gonna have to pay per student. We can do this. And you can see in my report, those are the schools that have signed on so far for this. So we're excited to be rolling into the fall here, and we have hired 3 full-time people. You can see Diana, Michelle, and Ashley. And to this point, all our office is involved in when students are struggling. It's usually a truancy issue. The districts refer the truant student to us. Our truancy officers go out. They do everything they can, but at that point, it's kind of a negative interaction, and they see them as, kind of like the law enforcement person coming, and you have to get to school. And a lot of times those students have struggled for so long, it's really hard to get them back and get them going. So this is going to be totally proactive. It's going to be when kids start to struggle, the schools that are involved in this program refer them to our specialists. Then they go out and they meet with the families. They'll be working in the evening. They'll be working on the weekends if they need to, and find out what the situation is, what's going on, and what help and support can they give. So we're excited about that and looking forward to seeing how it's going to go this fall. I think it's going to be very successful. So I'll take any questions at all about that program. Okay, and then our other programs, obviously our education outreach program, which provides GED certificates for people that are age 17 to 24. They're up and rolling again. They've got 68 people enrolled. And we do have 2 locations that we help people out with, Wallace School in Sterling, and then the Rock River Center in Oregon are the 2 areas where we help people get their GED that need to get their GED. And our truant program, you can see last year was the busiest year they've ever had. It was just unbelievable how a lot of students did not do well in remote learning. So, when a student doesn't turn any work in for a week, automatically they get referred to our office. And then they were out and about trying to find out what's going on, why they're not connected, why they're getting behind. So we did put in for our grant again this year. We're hoping that we'll receive the grant because by statute, our office needs to help with the truancy issues, and we have submitted it. So hopefully we will get that and be ready to roll again here soon, here in August. Any questions about the report?
Thank you, Chris.
Yep.
Moving on to county board claims. All of them are below 2,500.
And total is $1,454.50.
Wendy, do you want to comment on anything for county board?
I do. Is that,
That's-
is this a
I
good
think
time to
this
talk
will be
about?
the time that we'll handle you and your office. How about that?
Perfect. All right. So for the committee's sake, you should know that what I've been doing since I came on board is sending a weekly on Monday morning update to the executive committee on the activities of my week. To be honest, I didn't send one last week. We were in budget hearings last week on Monday morning, and I didn't get the job done. But to give you a little flavor of what I've been working on, obviously the budget has taken a priority, although Paula is doing 90% of the data entry and compilation of that. I've been involved from a hearing perspective or from a perspective of helping to do research. So that has consumed a fair amount of time. I also received across my desk about 7 days ago or so, a very comprehensive request from our insurance company, our property and liabilities insurance company. Each year, obviously, they request confirmation of the properties that we have and to make sure that in fact we're covering everything that we should be covering. So we're talking everything from the buildings to the properties to the automobiles and also liability. So there are questions that I forwarded out to the sheriff, such as, how many deputies do we have? How many are armed? We also have a questionnaire that I'll be speaking to Paul about that I know he's aware of, is in terms of our cybersecurity. What risk do we pose in terms of cybersecurity? So it's a pretty comprehensive report, and it's going to take quite a bit of time to compile it. I now understand, again, this will be done on an annual basis. So I'm working through that. I have been meeting with a lot of department heads, a lot of organizations, and a lot of county board members trying to get a sense of what they're looking for from what their expectation is from the county board. I have asked for, but I'm going to wait for a little bit, a strategic planning meeting with the executive committee that will kind of drill down on that job description. I'm seeking, some identification from the executive committee on what it is they think should be my priorities. As you well know, the job description was very broad, or not broad as in topics, but just quite comprehensive in terms of topics. And I want to get a better understanding when they say I should be involved in the hiring process. Define what you mean by involved in the hiring process, for example. I have my own ideas, but I want to make sure that I'm meeting the expectation of the board. So I'll be having that conversation. I've also had it on my radar that we've got some new board members and I want to have a new board member orientation. I've reached out to a couple of people to kind of talk about, and Jack, you're still on my list.
Yeah.
What as a relatively new board member, what would you expect? I've gotten some really good feedback thanks to Jim Horseman here, who gave me some great feedback. And now it's a matter of pulling that together. And as Jim and I talked, maybe some of these topics would be good topics for everybody. So as I continue to develop that, we'll see where that goes. Specific to this committee, I'd like to talk about the claims process. So I have continued to research the claims process. And in fact, I put on your desk something that says DeKalb County Government on it. I did, as I told you last month, reach out to our new auditor. And I've also reached out to counties and trying to identify best practices, because Chris's goal was to streamline the committee process, and I want to take it a step further and streamline even the internal processes. So Paula and Nancy agreed graciously to spend some time with me last week to talk about this topic. And in the flurry of activity that was my world last week, I ended up canceling it. So this has not been a conversation I've been able to have with Paula, Nancy, and staff yet, because I want to make sure that some of these ideas that I have are practical from a staffing standpoint and practical from a software standpoint. But what you're seeing, for discussion's sake, is an example of what you as a committee would receive for monthly claims. This particular page out of the report, it just happens to be the sheriff's office. So you'll notice the types of detail that you would see as a committee, not only who the vendor is, what account, what department, what exactly the claim is for, and you also see the amount of the claim and frequency of the claim. Is this a monthly thing? Is this an annual thing? Is this as needed? So the auditor that I spoke to said she'd like to see one more thing, maybe the actual check. What she liked about this, and she told me that most counties follow a process similar to this, what she liked about it is when you all get done here today with the packet of information that gets sent around, you've initialed it, but when you make a motion for claims, there's no summary of what it is you've approved as a committee for claims. What this would do is summarize what you've approved as a committee. Then it's going to take it a step further, and you'll see the last page of the handout I gave you is a summary of what the full board would see in terms of the claims. And my apologies, Nancy, I didn't get you a copy of this so you could be following along. But this is an example of what the county board would see. So when they make a motion to approve a claim, it's very clear which claims and what the dollar amount of those claims are that have been approved. So anyway, this is some exciting stuff. The auditor again said this is a practice that most follow, and she liked it for the paper trail of it. She encouraged us to move forward with this streamlined process. Now, she didn't have any input on whether the county administrator should look at things above or below 2,500. She said that's an internal decision, but from an auditing standpoint, I like this paper trail. So still working on it, because again, I have not had a chance with Nancy or Paula to talk about the practical implication of this or implementation of this with either Paula or Nancy or staff, but I'm still working on it.
Wendy, can you touch on what other counties do based off of their, whether it be chairman, whether it be administrator, finance director, what thresholds other counties that you found have been using?
The Whiteside County was anything $1,000 or less was actually just a department head approval, again, assuming it was budgeted. From 1,000 up to 10,000, that's where the county administrator had approval rights or authorities. From 10,000 to 30,000, then it was a committee decision from 10,000 to 30, and anything above 30, what Whiteside County does is they said that's a full county board decision. And again, keep in mind that at every one of these thresholds, it is assumed that it's a budgeted expense. It's not something outside the budget is a completely different process because it needs to go through a completely different process. So that's Whiteside County, an example of what they've done. I was going to add one more thing, but I think I covered it earlier in terms of what the auditors, what their recommended process was. So if there's any questions on that, I'm going to continue to explore this. Again, the only hurdle at this point is that I've not had time to talk with Nancy or Paula because I don't understand the practical realities of the software or staff, the demands on staff, and I need that information from them before I can make a full recommendation.
I'll speak for myself, and I think this committee is fully supportive of streamlining this process, especially if we can get information like this. So I think we can keep going down that path. Correct, guys? Okay.
I agree. This looks awesome. I like.
And more importantly, you can take that home with you then. So you can even study it more, Jack. That's what you need to do. Bob, do you have anything?
No, but I do like this. It looks good, and I think it's easier to look at. You can go through it and glance at it, and you can take it home like you said. So,
Perfect. Any other questions for Wendy? Moving on to the assessment office, I have two different ones. This is 071 for a total of. And that,
Total of $20.02.
and then I also have another one for 001, which is their county general. All of them are below 2,500.
And the total there is $2,039.84.
Jennifer, would you like to give a report?
Good morning. We've had a pretty quiet month for the most part. GIS department has been focusing on the ETSB Flex project with a large collaboration between the ETSB, GIS, and Motorola working together on the project. They also has performed some cleanup and submitted data to the NG 911. Our new plotter, we have it functioning, but there's some technical difficulties still with it being worked out. And the old plotter was recently taken out to the highway department for them to use. Still some difficulty with that, with the computer communicating with the old printer, but they're working on that. And they've also initiated an EOC dashboard project for the EMA, and they're collaborating. Lee County and Bureau County EMA is collaborating with that. So that's what's been going on in the GIS department. In the assessment office, I've taken the statewide supervisor of assessment exam, and that was held here on July 21st. And I was informed that I passed that exam. So yay, that is a big stress off of that. Received that certification, and I believe that the county received the official certification also. We have our new employee, Suzanne Hook. She got started on July 19th, and her training is going very well there. We have unexpectedly lost two of our printers, our main printer in the office that is still working, and it's under a service agreement, but we're looking into most cost-effective resolution for our other printers because it's not really optional to be working with just the one printer copier. So we're working on that. And other than that, we're still working on completing our annual township work in preparation for finalizing the 2021 assessments in the office. Any questions?
Questions? Jennifer, congratulations. Go ahead.
Just a quick one. I'm researching printers. Are you working with Paul on that?
We haven't contacted Paul about that. We've been looking, we're talking with SBM about the possibility of smaller printers, but possibly getting a smaller printer, but still a service agreement contract, because that seems to be what has burned us this time is our printer had a problem and we've got no contract on it because it was a smaller, but that's a good idea that we could touch base with Paul.
I actually have some quotes, forward some on recently to Nancy, and I have some to forward them on to Brian Brim for the judges. He was asking for that. So I have.
For some more
active quotes.
basic printers, not like a big.
Yeah, I mean, if you want a printer or copier that's a lower, not a like a big one, I'll send, we'll talk. about
Okay.
it, Okay.
Okay, excellent.
With service agreement cost built in.
Okay, excellent. Thank you.
Okay, moving on to VA. They're all below 2,500.
The total here is $1,156.30.
And the IT department only has one above 2,500. It's the yellow tab there.
And that's for Microsoft Office annual licenses. The amount there is $12,291. The total is $19,541.36.
Paul, would you like to give a report?
Yes, thank you. Well, I just completed 6 months here. I want to thank the board for their allowing me to serve as your IT director these 6 months. And I'd like to thank the department heads and elected officials for their patience, support, and understanding during my initiation of Lee County government. We kind of categorize the department's activities into support and projects. When I started a few weeks into when I started, we initiated a support ticketing system. We're currently over the course of the 6 months or 5 months since we've had it, averaging 6 support tickets a day. And that's again, independent of support or project work. Sometimes the ticket leads into project work. We're handling those based on kind of level of how critical they are, and then moving forward to the less critical items, but also trying to keep in line our current projects, which we have a long list of projects, but ones that that I want to mention right now. One, cybersecurity software installations in progress. We're installing some ransomware protection software that's been offered to us for free by the state of Illinois in all local counties and some other local units of government and election authorities in Illinois. They're taking ransomware very seriously now. And it's actually it's mandated that it be on election equipment. So we have to update the software that's already on Nancy's team's equipment with this, and then we're going to deploy it countywide. And this cybersecurity software or endpoint software is also recommended by our insurance company. So it's dealing with a state mandate and making our insurance company happy. In addition to that, improving our security is dependent on having current operating systems on our desktops and laptops and servers. So on our desktops and laptops, we're working on Windows 7 to Windows 10's upgrades. And again, that's consistent with IT best practices and guidelines set forward by our insurance company. And our insurance company and best practices also indicate you should have more than a simple spreadsheet for inventory management. So we're deploying an inventory management software and on the computers to better document the hardware and software being used in the county. And a complete project is it was a multi-unit government throughout the state. Leads 3.0. It's the software used by law enforcement for law enforcement purposes. And on my team, I want to thank Zach Owen for the time that he spent on that project. And then we have a slew of other projects, which are either we're actively involved in or actively researching. And if you have any questions on any of those, we can get into more detail about it. But that's all I have for my report today. But again, thank you for the 6 months and look forward to the next 6 months. Well, actually, I don't. There's a lot of work this fall, so it's, but you know, that's what I signed up for. So,
Paul, thank you. Is there any additional questions for Paul?
I got one. Oh, Paul, on the support tickets, historically, we had issues about response time before you got here. How would you characterize your progress?
Well, I've had some feedback and we're gonna look at this now. The ticketing system itself, it's really, if your computer's working, it's the best way to contact us because we get, 3 of us get, or actually 4, get notified by email. And then all of my team has the app on their phone. So wherever they're at, we get alerted to, there's an immediate need. And then we go through and Jonathan is our point person on kind of filtering them, but I'm always monitoring too. Matter of fact, we even have different tones on there for our email versus, the support ticket email. So we know what the support ticket when it comes in. What I'm looking to do is working out a way that somebody can call a number and reach us all at the same time. The problem that I have there is that we're not always at our desk. So this isn't something that we just pick up the phone. I want to make sure that phone call, if it goes to a message, then goes to a support ticket. Because I know if your computer's down, you can't initiate a ticket. So we're trying to follow up on if something's broken or down. For example, I had some plans to work on some computers, about a week and a half ago, deploy some stuff working with Jonathan and the like. But then we got a call that the iJur server was down. So I spent a day and a half working on that because that was a forward-facing, public-facing thing that people needed to interact with the government. And if it was something else like, well, I can't figure out how to print this on legal size, well, that got shoved down the line. And I know those are important to the people when they're making it, but when you only have a few people and one of them's been dedicated lately to supporting our full court enterprise system, which has been having regular issues, and we're continuing to work with the support vendor on that. This kind of leaves Jonathan and myself to deal with certain things, and I've been dealing with server issues while he's been picking up the loose ends, and Zachary working on FCE. We're hoping when I started, there were 15 tickets a day. Now there's 6. So as we whittle down, we hope to get less critical ones, wrap up I need this software installed and things like that at a better pace. But we're trying to get to them in a day or 2, but I can't say that's always happened because some of it includes orders for computers, which there's still a chip shortage nationwide. So we're kind of behind on that because affordable computers everybody wants, and it's kind of like homes today. The prices are going crazy. Trying to do it within a managed budget reason. So I would like to be faster on all of the tickets, quite frankly, but I think we're doing better as we go along in terms of prioritizing certain things and keeping people moving along. But again, one of our primary support issues lately has been full court, full case by justice systems, and it's been somewhat problematic. So it's kind of all hands on deck when we have an issue with that, and it puts everything off to the back burner. And it's been every other day we've been dealing with something, and we're working on them on upgrading the server and hardware. And that was part of my budget request. Part of the money asked for hardware and server will help make that system more reliable so we can focus on dealing with other tickets faster. So, and if anybody has any questions on where something's at, just let me know. Right after this meeting, I have to get back to Stacy on a project that she's anxious to get on, and Nancy and I are both waiting for a project manager from an external vendor to be assigned to a project so we can move forward on one of Nancy's projects. So, and then the Motorola Flex system, which is intergovernmental. It's a public safety software, and Shelley Dallas is heading up that, but my team's involved in that. These are all going to come together in September, October timeframe. So I would expect in that timeframe, we may not be able to respond to some support tickets right away because there's a lot of training involved. Matter of fact, this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Zach and I are in training across the street where Jonathan is doing these meetings in the morning and then covering tickets in the afternoon. So Would I like to be faster? Yeah. Wendy asked me during my review, she said, do you think you need more help? I said, I don't need more help. What I've budgeted for going forward was a partnership with Syndio and FISIC to some extent to take care of some of the, kind of like a support agreement on certain server items. So we're not hiring a full-time person, we're hiring a team of people to do the work that not one person could, specialize in. So I'm hoping that nothing, like Nancy, it's my first budget. We're hoping that everything goes fine with our budget request going forward. If it does, I expect things to continue to settle down and then we can better plan for the future. So I know that was kind of a long answer to that, but I'd like to see the tickets, be dealt with faster personally. But we're putting out fires, every other day because of the systems are ready to be updated. They're ready to be updated. So. And we're trying to, the state mandate for security, I don't mind since they're paying for the software. So that, we talk about unfunded maintenance. If they're going to make it a mandate and they pay for it, heck, I'm fine with that. Just take some time, hey. So.
Perfect. Entertain the motion to pay the claims. Second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Moving on to old business, we keep visiting that COVID policy and numbers. We had 2 employees for a total of 8 days off in the month of July. Claims procedure update. Wendy kind of touched on that. What the other counties are doing, I think it works really, really well. As you can see, we're getting more detail from our department heads rather than just worried about a $20 water bill or a $40 electrical bill. So I think we'll continue with this and try to figure out how we can implement it into all the different committees. So board rules and procedures discussion. Other than a couple of the minor things, the one big thing is the last page of the packet that Becky handed out, and we have to decide, or I leave it up to discussion of if we want to combine committees.
You sent it on an email, right?
Yeah.
So I have access to it.
No, we don't. So really what it comes down to is if we want to combine committees, especially with the reduction in the number of county board members from 24 down to 20, I'm a very big proponent of getting rid of committees, taking less time for department heads, for all of us, so on and so forth. And my initial gut feeling was combining public safety and ad services. When you actually put it on a piece of paper, it doesn't work, in my opinion. So after putting it on a piece of paper, it looks like properties kind of is the one. Properties currently has 4 different subcommittees that roll up underneath of it. Ad services, public safety really is going to be hard to shake out with the sheriffs, the clerks, so on and so forth. Everything is really in that building. And the reason why I put maintenance over there is the sheriff is in charge of the building, kind of in charge of the maintenance department, and IT and maintenance kind of go hand in hand, especially as of late. Ad service kind of is a catch-all for everything else, right?
It seems like it.
It really is. Somebody brought up animal control going over to public safety. I think you could absolutely make that argument or that case, but I leave it for discussion of if this is what we want to do as a committee and recommend it to the full county board of reducing committees from 5 down to 4, or if we want to keep it the same, or what's your guys' thoughts or discussions?
Just kind of looking at the ad services, you got 10 department heads for ad services and 8 for public safety. If you wanted to share by, to bring to kind of even it out a little bit more, so the ad services wasn't taking on so many more. I had no problem with animal control because it seems like it goes hand in hand too. It is kind of an enforcement in a sense. Animal control enforce public safety. That's my argument to bring them over also.
And I know with lots potentially eventually moving off to mass transit district and being off the county,
Mhm,
you're still gonna be at that 9 in one and 8 in the other. So
mhm.
to me, it didn't have to be perfect. It just what
No.
made sense and fit. So,
I agree.
and at the end of the day, I guess we have to decide if we want to reduce a committee as well. My big thing is if we reduce a committee and it fails miserably, we can rewrite the rules and go back to what we had before. And that's kind of, I'm okay with that
So
too.
what would you eliminate?
So essentially it would be property. So properties currently today is maintenance, zoning, animal control, and lots. So they have 4 underneath them. And then naturally IT is under ours. So you move IT from ed service over to public safety because of the interaction between maintenance and IT, in my opinion. And then pick up zoning, animal control, and lots under ad service, which is really is just a catch-all.
You end up with an odd situation where you have IT and GIS so separated. And traditionally they,
Well, honestly, GIS is more in line with the assessor's office right now, and that's actually a conversation we're having here this afternoon or late this morning. A lot of counties keep the GIS in the assessor's office for whatever reason. We had IT and GIS together, but many counties keep assessor and GIS together. So that's traditionally how other counties run. No.
yeah, that's, I just wonder about that with ed services under this proposal, having assessment office and GIS and then IT being separate in public safety.
Yeah, and the only reason I'm perfectly fine with keeping IT here and just kind of moving maintenance over there. I don't think it makes it too large of a committee even by keeping IT at ad services and just kind of moving maintenance over there. And the reason for maintenance is the sheriff. He's constantly at those meetings. We're occupying his time with additional county board committee meetings and requirements to be there. He's kind of got oversight of all of it. So I think wherever the sheriff is where maintenance needs to go. But I do see your point that IT could kind of go wherever you wanted. And I'd be perfectly fine. And I think you're right. And ad service is probably where IT should and could stay, but just trying to even things out. So it's not, but as we continue to update this claims process, we're at 45 minutes and we've gotten through a lot of stuff. So it's not like we're talking hours upon hours by adding.
I guess on the question of where the assessor, GIS and IT ends up, you probably ought to consult department heads and see if it matters to them.
I
May
think
not be an issue.
Paul just left, but I can definitely ask Paul, but and see where he prefers to end up, if he wants to be an ad service or public safety.
I mean,
And
he's been dealing with us for 6 months, you know.
maybe he wants to change, right? But I'll talk to Paul, and I think that's a great point, Jim, is let the department heads figure out what committee they want to report to. But I think as we sit here and look at it, the IT is not, definitely has to be under public safety. I think maintenance makes a lot of sense to be there, but let's see where the IT department head wants to be and kind of put them there. So, and I could totally get on board with that. So are we kind of okay with this, combining committees, seeing what happens, figure out where IT wants to go and then work on
Sure.
the rules and procedures? Most of the things that I have are just, like I said, dates, reduction in county boards, everything that I went through and saw. It's just a lot of little things that just need to be corrected based off of
Right.
the
And
number of
then
people.
the amount of members on the properties committee, we would split them up and add them to either one of these committees.
Yeah, so I've already gone through, I really like spreadsheets, so I have about 9 different spreadsheets on this topic right now. So actually, I've already gone through in my mind just to see and just use that current county board of where we're at of placing people. Most people would go from either 2 committees down to 1 committee, and I think that's okay, especially if we can really focus and dive in to be there and get a lot of information from that. So I can see in this committee, we're going to have like 7 people. We'd have 10 things. It'd be like, you're going to be really focus in on these 2 things. You're going to focus in on these 2 departments, these 2 departments. So that way you could come back and know what they're kind of talking about. And that's how I can see this committee would be ran. And I think it'd be and we can always keep rotating it up every 6 months. So bills at IT and GIS, well, then in 6 months, then the Jim, you can do that so you can get more familiar with it and I'll do it and kind of constantly rotating to be kind of, and that's how I do it in my professional life too at Bayer. So
You learn a little bit more about each department a little bit more.
correct, absolutely.
I think that is good.
Okay.
That's a good idea. I think all committees should do that. I mean, it's just, you start to understand what departments are going through.
Mhm.
Kind of like, I'm constantly arguing for the sheriff's department because nobody knows what they're going through.
Right.
Chicago, blah, 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 this and that, what's happening in the world, and so you just kind of get involved. And I think that is awesome. I think that's awesome.
So I'll talk to Paul, see where he wants. I'll start working on rules and procedures with Wendy. And we'll have a proposal to this committee potentially next month, if that's all right with you guys. I would entertain a motion to appoint supervisor of assessment
I'll make that motion.
and a second. Any discussion on appointing Jennifer and moving this on to executive? Any discussion? All those in favor of moving this on to executive, say aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, UTV ordinance, which everybody should have gotten here late last week. For our purposes, it's discussion only. Bob wanted it to be at least discussed in every committee if there's any concerns before we get too far along with this. Met with Bob and Charlie about putting together a UTV ordinance. We see what's coming. We see that there's the safety and technology out there. People are out there riding it already, so we might as well capitalize on some financial gain to the county, in my opinion. I think the first year permit is $100 and then $50 every year after that. It sounds like the sheriff's department is going to be the one selling the fees and permits because they've got the facility to do it. And a lot of that money can then stay there. If you notice, the sheriff has asked for, I believe, 5 new employees. So it's not tons and tons of money, but it's at least something that he can bring into his department to make more money. And really, I think his deputies are on board with this as well, that they want to know who's riding the side-by-sides, but they also don't need to police good people who are out with the joyride with their kids. It's no different than driving a car. If you're out drinking and driving and doing stupid things, and they're going to pull you over. But if I want to take a country mile with my daughters and son to go look at corn, then let me be able to. So is there any questions or any opposition on paper that you guys see right now? Or we'll just continue to see where this goes?
I've got a couple of questions.
Yeah.
First, and I guess mostly for Charlie. The ordinance says that the authorizing statute is at 14.6.1. And our ordinance says UTVs would be allowed on roads posted 55 or less. But when you look at the statute, it mentions the threshold being 35 miles per hour or less. Is that reconcilable?
So the reason that I did the 55 or less is because most of the roadways that are in the county are 55 or less. Now, when it comes up as the 35 miles per hour or less, as you're mentioning in that state statute, that refers to a non-highway vehicle as defined by the Illinois state statute, which includes 64-inch width or less. You'll also notice that in the UTV ordinance that's proposed, it's actually between 65 and 70 inches in width, and that's to get around that state statute.
Okay. But you think the statute still authorizes what we're doing?
I think so, yeah.
The other thing I had was a suggestion for what do you do about these things running in no passing zones? And I raise this selfishly. I live out in White Oaks.
Mhm.
White Oaks Lane is 4 miles long and it's now been striped double line. It's no passing. When there's bikes, we're okay because there's a statute that specifically says if it's a bike in a no passing zone, you can get around it. But these vehicles are going to have the orange triangle. I presume they're going to be moving more slowly.
Most of them are moving like most of them are moving 55, 65. I know some out there have a top end speed of 100. There are oh yeah, there's some crazy ones out there. There are gonna be some that are 25 and 30. And to your point, that road's probably a 30-mile-per-hour road.
No.
I guess
It's not posted.
it's not,
55.
it's 55. So I guess I give that question to Charlie.
And could we put something in that would kind of mirror the statute that allows people to pass bicycles? And say with UTVs, you can pass them in a non-passing zone. UTV pulls as far to the right as it's safe, and otherwise use the language from the biking statute.
I think you probably can. I have no pride of authorship when it comes to this ordinance, so whatever you want to include on there, we probably can do so.
Because, White Oaks Lane,
Mhm.
it's a source of great anger and road rage because you get people who are driving very slowly, but now there's no place where you can pass.
Right.
So this is people taking their kids to school, people trying to get back to work from lunch, all kinds of stuff. It's the road that these 150 houses use to get back and forth.
Right. So yeah, is that something we can add in, Charlie? Perfect. So we'll work on, Charlie will work on that. Any other discussion as far as the UTV? There'll be continue to be more. It's an ordinance, so it's going to have to be held over a month. And this is going to be, I believe, approved through public safety to the executive. So that's the direction, but everybody wanted to, it's easier to have a conversation with 4 people rather than 24 people at county board. So,
Well, the definitions, I know that the ordinance is artfully narrowly defines the vehicles we're talking about. Would it
very
help-
much so.
Would it help or hurt to have like a horsepower component to that? Or do you think it's unnecessary?
I think it probably is unnecessary. And the reason for that is, as we're trying to, the goal of the ordinance is to be consistent across the board for the county itself. So if you've got municipalities, townships that are going to be doing this as well, we want to make sure that they mirror each other. And since Dixon already has one, we were trying to keep it as close as we could to Dixon's.
We've met with Dixon and really bringing this in together. I think there's a huge opportunity to allow for tourism because of this. You look at people, and you love to hear that word, right, Bill? So I think there's definitely opportunities to make additional monies above and beyond just the permit fees. So it's kind of a cult following right now. So any other discussion from UTV aspect? No need for executive session. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
See you guys next month.
Less than